You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Happy New Year to you and everybody tuning in. So hopefully the first 6 days of 2026 have been fruitful as everyone kind of gets back into the work routine of taking time off around the holidays, and you try and get your give a damn back, right? Like that's kind of what I've realized after talking to a lot of folks who took plenty of time off around the holidays. Man, this first full week back is just so daunting, getting into your cadence and your swing of things. But I'm doing good, man. I really am. So Bulldogs didn't go the way I wanted to in the quarterfinals. That was a bummer, but it was the only good game on that day. So I don't know if I'm taking solace in that or not, because Texas Tech laid a dud against Oregon, which I found pretty surprising. I thought that'd be much more of a game. And then IU, kudos to this Indiana team, because they put a whooping on Alabama that is borderline generational, because it's been that long since Alabama got taken behind the woodshed quite like that. So, I mean, definitely some things to look at. Week 18 was it looked like it could have been good on paper. Honestly, it was another prime example of why you don't have a fantasy championship week 18. There was a ton of people not playing. Eagles didn't play any of their guys. Nico Collins sat out. The Chargers didn't play Herbert or Marion Hampton. And the list just honestly kind of goes on and on and on. Josh Allen played the first snap of the game, and that was it.
Right.
And it came in to keep his start record intact, and then left. So it was a prime example. Have your fantasy championship on week 17, because week 18 is for prop bets and understanding what metric players need to hit to get some bonuses. But
Absolutely.
Got through that. So that was fine. And then Black Monday.
Right.
All right. So we had two coaches that had been relieved during the season. And then we had another 4 coaches get relieved on Black Monday, head coaches. And then today we had kind of a shocker with John Harbaugh being the latest. And I'm not sure that we're done yet. And I think it could depend on maybe what some of these coaches do and what may or may not come available. But I don't know that we're done just yet. There's still 1 or 2 teams I got my eye on that could potentially be making, or at least looking at making, a change here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the dominoes fall here, right? We've also got, right, with coaching changes, you're also going to see a lot of staff changes come over, and you're starting to see some of, coordinators get let go of in that midst as well, right? Washington came out and relieved their defensive coordinator of duty, and then you kind of some weird things as far as the reporting of how that went, right? Saw some things come out where it was the Cliff Kingsbury and the Commanders had decided to mutually part ways to he was then leaving to pursue other opportunities. They released him. So guess depends on who you're talking to as far as kind of which one that goes. But yeah, some coordinators opening up there, right? Dallas let go of their defensive coordinator as well. But so far you've got the Giants vacant, Titans vacant, Falcons, Browns, Raiders, Cardinals, and Ravens all vacant head coaching positions there. And it'll be interesting to see, right? Some of those very much not a surprise at all. Some of those little bit of head scratchers as it kind of came through.
Yeah. I think the easy low-hanging fruit one is Harbaugh was a bit of a head scratcher. Thinking that they were going to give him 1 more year just because of all the injuries and trying to run it back, one more go. Pete Carroll was slightly interesting. I know the Raiders were not very good, but they had just done this, right? Like the Raiders do not give their head coach any time to succeed with a less than par roster as far as NFL standards go. And so Pete Carroll's out. Yeah, so those might have been, but on the flip side, there were some that weren't a surprise at all.
Right.
So Stefanski, no one was surprised about Stefanski. Jonathan Gannon, no one was surprised about that. Uh,
Nope.
Raheem Morris is kind of a mixed bag. I think some folks were a little surprised by that, and then other folks weren't surprised at all. It just kind of depends on what camp you set in with Raheem Morris. But I was I was truly probably the most surprised is that Mike McDaniel still has a job in Miami.
Right. But the GM was relieved of duty.
Right, because that's the reason that Tua Tagovailoa can't complete a forward pass, and this offense is anemic right now because he comes up with the game script. Like it just that team needs a breath of fresh air. It
Right.
just screams needing fresh air to me. So that one's a little surprising. Honestly, you could argue that Cincinnati not moving on and trying something different was a bit of a shock. I know that they're probably going to try and chalk it up to the Joe Burrow injury, but I think Cincinnati's kind of run its course too, and they're going to be looking for a head coach here relatively quickly.
Right. Yeah, the it'll be interesting, right? Because typically you wait to hire a head coach until you have the GM in place, but the fact that the Dolphins got rid of their GM and but the coach is going to remain, that one is a bit of a head scratcher to me, right? Because now you've got to bring in a GM that not only builds the roster the way that you're wanting it built, but also is doing it without necessarily his guy at the helm, coaching and leading the locker room there. So, kind of an interesting turn of events there. So, also saw some things that it looked like some of these teams were tapping. I believe I saw something where there was a team out there trying to tap Troy Aikman to also come in and be part of the
Miami.
that's what it was. Yep, for the GM search.
Yes. Yeah, they're gonna bring Aikman in to help search for a GM, which that one was a little interesting to me. Like I didn't realize Aikman had the ties to Miami that they would be bringing him in and doing that. But
Right.
I guess kudos to the ownership group in Miami, like realizing that maybe they don't know everything that they need to know when it comes to searching for a GM, so they're going to bring in some help. I'm surprised it's Aikman being so removed from the game, like as opposed to like a Peyton or Eli Manning, and that's just obvious names to put out there. But something like that. So I realized why they couldn't do Brady. Like I
Right.
realized why they can't do Brady, and so then you just kind of default to, well, okay, who are the next best quarterbacks who have retired lately? Well, Peyton and Eli, I guess, would be the next closest as far as great quarterbacks who have retired.
But it also makes you wonder how much access these guys actually get in the being part of the TV broadcasts and all of that. Like how much access do they really get inside these front offices and the locker rooms and all of that as they go through this deal to have that potential kind of insight into that, other than just a you football knowledge from when they played type of thing, right? Like is a very interesting perspective to see how many of these guys are kind of getting tapped to come in and help address some of that, right? Like I had seen some reports where the Falcons are reaching out to Matt Ryan through some of their their vacancies and potential there. Well, I don't know how accurate those reports were because didn't really vet those too well, but that was another interesting thing to kind of see come out.
Yeah. They're scratching, right? I mean, you got to know You got to at least try and nail one of them down. And like with the Dolphins, the Dolphins are going to be pigeonholed a bit unless they're willing to have the GM come in and go, no, this isn't it. Like, sit down, you kind of go through everything, and if the Dolphins hire someone who has really close ties to, I'm going to say John Harbaugh for kicks and grins, right? If he has really good ties to John Harbaugh, Mike McDaniel still might not make the cut, right? Like, he might come in and say, okay, like, this is where we're at. And yeah, the scout team, here's your analysis or whatever, but we're going to bring John in and he's going to start building his staff around it. And you guys can do pass offs and information downloads on your way out.
Yeah. So it'll be very interesting to see there, right? And you mentioned the Las Vegas, right? Like, kind of looking it up. Las Vegas has cycled through 3 different full-time head coaches since Gruden left in 2021. That is insane to kind of think about there, right? The McDaniels to Antonio Pierce to Pete Carroll, and the continuity that doesn't seem to be there.
I've seen a couple podcast snips on social media where they've been talking to Antonio Pierce. He just happened to be a guest on one of these podcasts, and he handled it with grace. I mean, he did not bash the Raiders. He did not bash Pete Carroll, but in the back of his head, he's going, man, what'd you bring this sucker in for? Like, I had a better rapport with these players. Like, we were doing okay. And, you screwed the pooch to, screw it even deeper. But he handled it with grace. So I want to give him a lot of credit. Not that he gives a flying leap what this guy has to say, but I had the utmost respect for how he handled that situation.
Yeah. Sounds like he did well there. The interesting one, right? Like, I saw another bunch of folks kind of come out thinking that Kevin Stefanski's release of the Browns was interesting, and some people were surprised by that. The surprising thing to me is that he managed to win 2 different, or coach of the year 2 different times. Like, I didn't necessarily see those. But how many folks out there are thinking that he's a very strong candidate for a head coaching job somewhere else? Like, I get that oftentimes it's the GM that makes the roster decisions and the personnel decisions, but this is a roster that repeatedly had a kind of a top ranked defense and couldn't manage to put anything together on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, which is crazy because he's an offensive guy.
Right. I'm sorry. That was the point I was going towards. So thank you for finishing that.
Yeah. So he came in as an offensive guy. The thing about Stefanski that I had heard was he was pretty against the Deshaun Watson trade. And never made it public knowledge, but the beat writers and those who have some inside information within Cleveland have started to leak that out a little bit, that he was never a fan or proponent of giving up what they did for Deshaun. And then you come in and, Deshaun has not looked good, and then he's being injured, him being injured and everything else. But I wonder how much of that just kind of wore thin on both sides. Right. So it will be interesting. I don't know. Like, I'm sure he'll land on his feet somewhere. Right. And even if it takes him a year, like, takes a step back, goes, whether he's an offensive coordinator in the NFL, whether he goes to college and does the college OC thing for a year or two and then comes back. But I think he'll come back. But, definitely a mixed bag as far as age with this group of coaches, and maybe not necessarily coaching tenure, but just age in general, right? Pete Carroll in his 70s, clearly the oldest, but Ray Morris, Kevin Stefanski aren't even Jonathan Gannon. Like these guys aren't that old. Like they're still quote unquote prime coaching age. Um, so it will be interesting to see how they cycle through because Jonathan Gannon was a really good coordinator before he became the head coach in Arizona. And so you wonder how much of that he'll fall back into old hat and get picked up somewhere. Derek, we were talking pre-show, like Raheem Morris to be able to take a breath, like how much would the Dallas Cowboys love to
Mhm.
get Raheem Morris in there
Right.
to at least give Schottenheimer a things to bounce off of. And not I don't think Schottenheimer did a bad job as a head coach. I think anytime you're the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, there's just extra pressure because of the
Right.
media surrounding everything that the Cowboys do, good, bad, or indifferent. They get clicks, they get people to tune in when they talk about the Cowboys. Um, but to be able to bring in Raheem Morris, who's had a couple seasons of head coaching experience and being able to, work with Schottenheimer in a area where the Cowboys need a lot of help.
Right.
That one could be interesting.
Well, and the other thing too, right? Like Chris Shula is a guy whose names kind of come up here and been floated out there as potential candidates for some of these vacancies. That's if he ends up getting a job there, right? Like, tell me McVay doesn't make the call back to Raheem Morris and just bring him back in, and right, like those two worked
Mhm.
together very successfully for several years. And yeah, Raheem was the coordinator for the Rams before taking the Falcons job. It's only 2 years removed from being the defensive coordinator um, with LA. Or that could be another kind of very soft landing spot for him as well.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things start to shake up here and how some of these interviews start kind of looking and working out here and who these candidates and who people really start kind of getting geared up towards on that one. But any other thoughts here on the Black Monday or some of these coaching vacancies?
Nothing too crazy, right? It's still very early. We got to see what kind of process we're going to get through here in the next couple weeks with some of these coaches and how that looks. But there's definitely offensive and defensive coordinators inside these playoff teams who are going to be getting looked at really hard for opportunities. One of them being, and I cannot remember his name. I've been trying to pull up the thing that I saw, but he's the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. Is a guy that I was reading a lot
Jesse
of.
Minter.
Yes, a lot of people in NFL circles really like what his future holds.
Okay. Yeah, he's certainly a name that kind of is it seems to be on the short list for viable coaching vacancies there, right? Some other coordinators out there. And we haven't really talked about much of the coordinators, but like Brian Flores is another guy that has some coaching experience.
Mhm.
Yeah, potential candidates there, right? Clint Kubiak is another guy that seems to be kind of name floating towards the top there. Chris Shula, we mentioned him earlier. Jeff Halfley, another guy, Vance Joseph, and Cliff Kingsbury, all kind of various coordinators that have started kind of having their name float out there as far as potential head coaching candidates for this cycle.
Yeah. No, very true. So we'll know more here in a couple weeks
Yeah.
as we get closer. Obviously, the week in between the conference championship games and the Super Bowl, normally a lot of that information comes out. So
Yep.
we'll be hearing much more about this.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think we'll see some more info come through. Any news notes that anything that you want to hit up on that front besides coaching, obviously,
So we got wild card weekend coming up,
right?
right? So definitely some pretty good matchups coming across. Some that maybe people aren't as enamored with, but the Chargers Patriots I think will be a really good matchup. I think obviously the Bears Packers is kind of a coin flip in how you perceive that game coming out. So that one will be good as well.
Also enjoy the fact that it's a rivalry game in wild card weekend. Like, that's just fun.
Yeah, that'll be the third time they've played in 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Week
It's something crazy like
14,
that.
week 16, and wild card weekend.
Yeah.
So I expect tempers to kind of flare in that one. I think one that could be really interesting is the Eagles and Niners.
Mm-hmm.
That game could be super interesting. And we'll see. And then the Jags, who have been
Just lights
pretty
out.
hot, right? Pretty hot coming in, going to Buffalo or no, excuse me, having a home game against Buffalo, excuse me, and taking on the Bills there. So a lot of intriguing games. And then the couple that really aren't, right? Like the Steelers Texans game
Meh.
doesn't really do a whole lot. Like that one screams like 16-13, just a
Yeah.
defensive, grinded out, lot of field goals, whoever has the ball last type game. So that one's not so much. And then the Panthers Rams game is one. It's a decent regular season game. We'll see what happens here in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how some of this plays out there. But yeah, there's, as you mentioned, there's some games that are gonna be very intriguing, and some games that it's gonna be a hard time kind of tuning in and really trying to get into to some of these games, right? Like, that Rams Panthers one to kind of lead things off on Saturday. It's one that on papers, I on paper, right? I think the Rams just come out and dominate kind of from the get go and all of that, but that is not the way that those two played out during the regular season. So um, it'll be interesting to see what they kind of take from that first matchup and getting eyes on each other, and then also the film over the last few weeks and how that kind of comes to pass. And um, same thing with the Bears Packers, right? Like, what are we going to see there that we haven't seen in the previous two matchups, right? Like, that was kind of something that I was glad that during the telecast between the Broncos and the Chargers, they brought up a few different times that if you're the Broncos, if you're the Chargers, you really don't want to put anything on film or even bring anything out situationally between these two, because if the Chargers go into New England and win, you're going to see those two matched up again, most likely here in the divisional round, and
Absolutely.
you don't want to necessarily give anything away. So,
Yeah, there's enough familiarity between those divisional rivals. You don't want to give them anything
anything
more
else.
than what you have to.
Right, and especially in a deal where the Chargers, it didn't really matter for them win, lose, or draw on that Week 18 matchup, right? They were pretty well locked into where they were, and that's what it was going to be. Broncos trying to make sure they secure the number one seed, but yeah, and then that kind of the bookends there are the two games that I'm not overly excited about on paper, right? The game to lead it off Saturday, Saturday, and then the Monday night game to cap off the wild card weekend. Like, the other four games in there, I think we'll get some pretty good games. Those two on the bookends aren't necessarily ones that are driving me to sit down and watch all 60 minutes of that one,
Yeah,
at least on paper.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
I say that, and those will be the most two entertaining games of the week. That's the way it seems to always be. So
That's all right.
absolutely. Yeah. Any other news notes? Anything else you want to hit up here as far as wild card weekend goes?
No, not yet. Not yet. It's only Tuesday, so we haven't seen really injury. Oops, sorry, we haven't really seen injury reports come out yet. So there's still plenty that's left up in the air as these teams kind of get ready to go. And we'll just know more as the week goes on. But right now, it's not overly insightful as far as injury designations and how some of this is really playing out.
Yeah. But that is the other thing too that can be kind of fun, is getting into some of the DFS slates, things like that here over the weekend, and all of that. So be tuning in and keeping an eye on those injury reports as well. And then anything from week 18 that kind of stood out to you?
Uh, the the Ravens screwed the pooch,
Yeah.
right? I don't know how else to kind of put that. The Ravens screwed the pooch. The Seahawks looked absolutely dominant against the Niners. Um,
Yeah, that was a little surprising to me.
yeah, the interception was such a big deal, right? Just San Francisco was not moving the ball incredibly well. And when McCaffrey kind of bobbled that pass and Seattle ended up picking it off, it was just as crazy as it was, it just felt like the death nail because San Francisco wasn't moving the ball very well. We felt like that was really their one best shot to be able to get within a field goal and, play defensive football and, try and kick another one in, tie it up, and you never know what happens at that point. But when Seattle picked that off, seemed kind of game over right there. Um, Everything else was meh, right? Like Cowboys pulled their starters.
Right.
Chargers didn't have their starters, kind of what we were talking about earlier. Eagles didn't play any of their guys, even though they could have gotten the 2 seed had they just played their starters and won the game against Washington. They decided not to. So that was a little interesting. But who knows? Maybe that's how they wanted it. The Bears did not look good for the first 2.5 quarters of their game against the Lions, and then just kind of willed their way into at least tying it up before the Lions got a field goal late. I expected more out of the Bengals than what we got.
Right.
Like it definitely was not. It wasn't a great week. It really wasn't.
No.
There's a lot of packed up and ready for Cancun going on.
You're not kidding. You're not kidding. It was there were some of those
Miles
games.
Garrett. Miles Garrett got the sack record.
Right.
That's something, and good for him. I mean, records are made to be broken. I mean, and he's a hell of a pass rusher, right? I mean, Miles Garrett has a high motor. He's very high intensity. I know I gave him a ration of hell for early in his career when him and Mason Rudolph got into it and he hit
Right.
Mason Rudolph with his own helmet and the tomahawk chop, as I have continuously called that play. But really, good on him. Good dude. I mean, I thought Burrow kind of laid down on that sack, like he didn't really have him wrapped up, and Burrow just kind of fell over as soon as he got his hands on his shoulder pad. But it's all good. It's all good. We saw Favre lay down for Strahan. Like we saw, I mean, we've seen guys lay down for some of this stuff, and I think what the Bengals were most frustrated about is the stopping of the game. Well, if you don't have the stopping of the game, again, don't lay down and give them a sack. Like fight through it. And Burrow, whatever he saw, he didn't like it because he went down quick.
Yeah. Do we see Strahan and TJ Watt pull a Mark Gastineau is the next question. Confronting Burrows, several years later type of thing.
Oh no. I mean, TJ Watt got a gimme or two on his year where he tied it. So I don't think that he's gonna be saying a whole bunch. And Strahan, he's so far removed from it. My guess is he'll be on Good Morning America or whatever daytime talk show he's doing these days, and he'll congratulate him.
Yeah,
if he hasn't already.
Yeah, it shows how much we pay attention to the morning and daytime talk shows. So
yeah, they got the job. I'm paying attention to that.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I don't know that I really have anything else here on the week 18 or wild card. Anything else you want to chat about here before we start calling it a night?
I think one thing, right? Since we don't have really any realm of influence and we don't know who's really looking at what opening, is there a coaching spot, right? If you had your pick, right, of the most desirable, and then on the flip side, the least desirable, that they'd have to back up the Brinks truck for you to even consider it.
The Titans would certainly be in the least desirable. The Raiders and Browns would both kind of be in that realm for me. At least the Raiders, you get the number one pick, so you can try and maneuver and bring some things in there. But right, the Raiders have so many holes across the defense, so many holes across the offense, that not one guy is going to be able to really bring that around for you. Like they're gonna need to make a big splash here in free agency as well. Browns, you're kind of just hamstrung with that roster as well. So those would be kind of the three teams that would be the least desirable, as I would see it. The most desirable, the Ravens would be a hard one to get away from, right? Like that's probably the most desirable one out there, right? The organization's pretty stable, right? You have coaching. You had the same head coach for 18 years, right? And you were a field goal away from being a playoff team this year, right? With several kind of your key player and key roster guys in position for the long term. The Falcons would be a fun one because they've got a pretty good defensive roster, as well as you've got several just kind of fun playmakers on the offensive side of the ball that, if you can kind of see it all come together, that would be a fun one to be a part of too, I think. What about you?
I want to say the Falcons, but I have just as many red flags as I do green flags. Like the fact that you really don't know what's going on with your quarterback position is a big thing, right? Because coaching tenure and quarterback output tend to go hand in hand. And this is now the fourth time that Michael Penix has had a season-ending injury since college. And so I'm worried about that. You are cap strapped with Kirk Cousins, and he did rework some of his contract to basically give the Falcons room for this upcoming season. But it turned around and it's like $68 million or something that they owe him in 2027. Like it's going to get pinched really tight there, which is going to be interesting because you got to pay Drake London. You're going to most likely want to pay Bijan coming up here, so that one's interesting. The Giants have a little bit of intrigue because of what Jackson Dart showed. You're going to get Malik Neighbors back at some point. Same thing with Cam Scatteraboo. But there's still plenty of holes in that roster, and that division's not easy, right? Like it doesn't always look the prettiest, but they do a pretty good job of beating each other up in that NFC East job. But I think I'm with you. I think I want the Ravens job first because of the stability and the fact that they've had 3 head coaches. It soon will be 4, but at this moment they've had 3 head coaches since they came back and became the Ravens there in Baltimore. So that's a pretty good baseline and runway, right, to be able to grow and develop and do what you need to do as a head coach. Overall roster talent, it's getting a little old, and that scares me.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of makes me lean towards Atlanta or the Giants as well. But I think I'd take Atlanta and take my chances, and knowing that Bryce Young, not a very good quarterback, right? Like Carolina's still going to have to figure out their quarterback situation. Baker is peaks and valleys, right? We saw a peak last year. We saw the start of a peak until week 6, and then we saw a big valley with Baker. Mike Evans is maybe coming back, maybe not.
Right, he's getting up
And
there and a little long in the tooth.
and seeing where that goes. Um,
New
and
Orleans,
New Orleans is not good. Tyler Shook showed better than what I thought he would. Like
yeah,
kudos to Tyler Shook. I don't know that he's the franchise, but if they can get 1 or 2 more years out of him as they bridge into a new quarterback, I think that serves their purpose of drafting him.
right.
We'll see how that goes, but I don't see him being a second contract guy with New Orleans unless he takes a massive leap forward from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah, that's fair. And I was looking it up as well, right? Like Kirk Cousins in 2027, so 2 years down the road, it is a like 90 million cap hit on that.
It is
But
now. Good night.
the dead cap is only 12.5 million. Like that'll be one of those that he'll either rework that deal again or they'll simply move on, right? Like
Is that
the
the updated numbers from today?
I believe that's looking like some updated numbers on that one. So
Okay.
but yeah, it looks like while the cap hit for 2027 looks like it's about 90 million on that one, the dead cap only looks to be about 12 and a half. So they'll either rework that deal or he'll be moving along, right? Like but they're going to need him for next year because Michael Penix isn't going to be rocking and rolling at least to start the season there. So Joe chiming in over on YouTube saying that the Giants is a great gig next year, and the only downside to the Giants job is the insane tax rate in New York.
Yeah, but, I mean, hell, it works for all the California teams,
Yeah,
and it's basically the same. I don't know. Like, that's why you set it up. These guys have good CPAs for a reason.
right. Well, and I don't know. The Giants have had issues for several years. I don't know that necessarily changes
There's
next year.
intrigue, though. Thinking if you can go in and you can get this figured out. Again, they've a little bit of help in the secondary, right? Like, get some help in the secondary and your offensive line, right? Maybe you bring a wide receiver in free agency to truly pair up with Malik Neighbors. Like, you got to feel like they're not too many pieces away from at least being really competitive. I don't know if it's going to turn them into a playoff, perennial playoff team or Super Bowl contender, but you got to feel like the Giants roster is like, okay, like we can shuffle things around and be really competitive from where we were at, right? With the 5th overall pick, I think is what they have now because they beat the Cowboys and, screwed themselves out of the number 1 pick.
Right.
But they didn't need a quarterback anyway. They got Dart. And so now I wouldn't be shocked to see them finish middle of the road next year. And then maybe, going into 27, we're talking about them as really being able to fight for the division.
Right. And that's more what I would want is that job more in 27, not necessarily this coming year, right? The coming year, you've got a lot of the intrigue that's going to be recovering from some major injuries and likely miss several bits of time. Plus,
The
with a lot
draft
of those,
pick I want this year, though. Like,
fair
that's
enough.
why I would want it this year, is because you get the draft pick to develop for a year and then full year removed, right, from the injuries of Scatabo, Neighbors, everything else. Like, you can build the nucleus and then you get your superstars at full strength.
Fair enough. All right, you may have talked me and brought me around on that one. Joe saying that they could see Harbaugh going to New York. It's an interesting thought there, right?
Yeah, Harbaugh's an interesting case because he's a special teams guy, right, before he became a head coach. So he's not necessarily one of those guys who is going to go into another team and play coordinator. Like, that's not quite the Harbaugh status. So,
Right.
and he fits a lot of different areas. Like, again, New York, I mean, New York's not a bad one. Like, Atlanta honestly wouldn't be a bad one. You bring in a really good OC and you're sitting in there. But the way Harbaugh likes to play, I don't know. I don't know if Kirk Cousins fits that. So have to figure out what the quarterback position is going to look like for Harbaugh. But I think Atlanta could be an interesting one. Giants for sure. I don't think he's going to Cleveland. I don't think he's going to Tennessee. So a couple that I feel like you could knock off right away is I don't think that's their guy.
Yeah, that's fair. So it'll be interesting to see where some of these guys land. Joe saying Strahan did it in 16 games. Yeah, same could be said for all of these guys that held records when the season was only 14 games long, but then moved to 16 and then got broken. Right, like just part of the gig, part of the deal. Binking saying, "Sup, y'all? Not much, Binkins. You know how we doing it on a Tuesday." Joe saying likes to say, same thought that you had there with the Giants have that really high draft pick. So, yeah, see that. Frosty over on YouTube asking, who are the bigger frauds, Seattle, Pats, or Broncos? Rank them.
I mean, any necessarily are each. I would tell you that Seattle's biggest deficiency is Sam Darnold in the playoffs, right? And seeing how he can perform in those high pressure situations. Denver's biggest deficiency is their offensive efficiency at times. But now that they're the 1 seed and playing all those games at home, I know Jacksonville went in there a couple weeks ago and kind of laid the wood on them a little bit, but I think that's probably a good wake-up call. Like, you want to talk about a good loss. That might have come at a really good time for the Broncos, for them to kind of get a reality check right before the playoffs. Because ultimately this team's led and it's completely driven by their defense. Pats, I don't know that the Pats are a fraud, but I do think the Pats are interesting just because their strength of schedule was so bad.
Right.
Like, so bad. Now, Drake May took a good step forward. The two-headed monster that they finally kind of developed there between Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson is working well. Vrabel's a defensive guy, right? And so that players are responding well to him. So I don't know that any of them are necessarily frauds. I think if the Patriots say the Patriots beat the Chargers and make it through, if they're all in the divisional round, I think the Broncos would potentially have the highest opportunity to get knocked out first, only because you got to be able to put up points at some point in time. And Bo Nix and the Broncos just go dry. And you don't have as much of that with Seattle and New England.
Yeah. Fair enough. I would agree with that, right? There's only so many of these games that you can win by putting up 20 points. Right? Like, especially in some of these playoff games, you're gonna have to turn it up. You're gonna have to dial some things differently, and there's going to be times that you're going to have to win a game ugly with 30, 40 points on the board. And I don't know that the Broncos necessarily have the ability just to flip the switch and turn it on like that, right? Like they have yet to really show that all season long. So
yeah, like I am deathly afraid that the Bills beat the Jaguars and then the Bills come to Denver.
Right.
Because I don't want to see that as a Broncos fan. Like, no. I think Buffalo wins that game.
Right. Yeah, that one's not a pleasant thought there. Binkin saying that none are frauds, but they'd put Denver behind the Pats. Okay. Frosty saying that they want Harbaugh on the Bucks
instead of
Todd Bowles.
Yeah. I mean, the Bucs' offensive philosophy doesn't match anything what Harbaugh's ever done in his career, though. Like that roster construct, is about as polar opposite from John Harbaugh as you could possibly get, or at least what he's shown with how the Ravens front office built a team compared to how the Buccaneers offense has built their team.
Yeah, fair enough. Frosty saying Harbaugh would want to go to a team that he can win with right away, though. No, some of that depends on the offer and what that truly looks
Money
like.
talks, yeah, money talks.
Exactly.
Yes, everybody wants to win. Everybody does want to win, but I mean, that's what's kind of interesting with this. Like looking at these teams, who's the most win-ready team right now? Out of this group, it's probably Atlanta because of the division.
Mm-hmm.
And then New York, figuring you're 2 years away from really being able to compete.
Right.
But,
and then you got to hope that Dallas doesn't figure out a defense, and the Eagles, right, in a down year, still won the division.
Yeah. Yeah. If the Eagles can get their offensive line redrafted and bring some youth into that offensive line, that's
watch out.
Start worthy, watch out, because defensively they're young.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're young and there's no reason that they shouldn't be better next year.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, that's the first time that any team has won that NFC East division back-to-back years. I forget how long that was, but it's been
04.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been about 20 years. I know we looked that up on a previous episode, but yeah, it's been a long time since you've seen the NFC East division winner win that back-to-back, and the Eagles have done it now. So, Binking saying that Denver could turn it back on, but it's been a while. Yeah, it has. It's been a little rough.
They could, right? And there's blips, there's flashes, but again, playoff games are generally you got to play the whole game, and that's what worries me is Denver can't get into 4 straight 3-and-outs and put themselves in a 13-point hole. Like that's where they're not good, so they're going to have to figure it out quickly and script the first 15 really well to get points on the board early.
No, I would agree. Binking saying, who's the OC in New England? It's always who the OC in New England is. It's Josh McDaniels.
It's McDaniels.
Right? Like one of those that you just wait a little bit, and if he leaves, just wait a season or two, he'll be back.
He'll come back.
Binking saying New England OC and May development is real deal.
Right? Hell yeah, McDaniels is an awesome offensive coordinator.
Correct.
As good as an offensive coordinator as he is equally as bad of a head coach. Like he just cannot run the ship, but he is a great lieutenant.
Right. So the offensive court, like he's engineered and led been the offensive coordinators for some epic offenses in the past. Right.
And all sorts of different kinds. Like
right.
That's what I like about him is he's not the same guy year in and year out. He does a really good job morphing the team offensive philosophy around the personnel that he has. Because we saw 4 different variations just with the Patriots between the stints, and then his coaching bombs in Vegas and Denver, and I guess technically Indianapolis. That was a bomb. He didn't win a single game for Indy.
Yeah. So
in the 6 hours he was there.
True. Kind of the same thing with we were talking early on a previous episode where so many of these coaches, we kept hearing this kind of nonsensical coach speak come out that we're going with this guy because he stays on script, and being on script allows us a better chance to win. And we need a play caller. We need somebody that can keep us on script. Very much of the opinion that coaches that want to use that kind of coach speak are guys that don't necessarily have the ability to adapt their scheme to the personnel and really do that. They need they need the absolute right conditions to bring in to fit their way of doing things, and ultimately,
Which is why Jonathan Gannon is not the head coach in Arizona.
So, for the that was one of the key organizations we kept hearing that out of. That we need guys that keep us on script, and they give us a better chance to win when they're on script. A lot of the best plays are made off script. So anyway, we'll move on because I can kick this horse all night. Frosty, do you see Pickens walking? I think Dallas is going to do whatever it takes to keep him there.
Yeah, it's going to come down to dollars and cents. The Cowboys do not have a whole lot of cap room at this moment, so it's going to be getting with Dak and getting with CD and trying to have them rework their contracts a little bit. Like, that's truly what it is. I do believe Dallas would like to have George Pickens back. The couple snippets that I've read from George Pickens interviews it leads me to believe that he's sincere when he does like being in Dallas and he does want to come back. But again, how many opportunities do you have to really get paid? And Pickens performed like a number one this year. I would like to see Dallas expand his route tree a little bit besides slants and goes, but that's neither here nor there. Like, that's going to be the biggest knock on George Pickens for anybody else looking at him is, well, he did something. It was something stupid. Like 70% of his production came off of those two routes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a one, you have to be able to do the whole route tree. And that's just not what Dallas asked George Pickens to do. It's not that he can't, but he's arguably one of the best contested catch guys in the NFL. He's really quick twitch. He's good in the red zone because he's got a big body on him. Like, I mean, there's so many highlights. He's a bit of a head case. We didn't really see it in Dallas this year. There was one, maybe two games where we kind of saw him get in his own head and take himself out of the game mentally. But for the most part, he did stay engaged in Dallas. He knew what he was playing for. The statistics will back it up. Like, he will get paid wide receiver one money from somebody. I think Jerry would like to keep him there because Jerry likes the fireworks, right? He likes the big plays. He likes all that. But George Pickens being a little bit of a basket case, if it drags on too long, I think he'll just say screw it and he'll walk. So the Cowboys might have to franchise him.
Yeah, very well could be. Binking saying that to me, Harvey isn't enough. I think
I'd agree.
But I think at the same time he's doing the role that he's required to do in that offense.
Yeah, he's doing his role well. But this is where you wanted Dobbins to be healthy, right? Like, now that you're here and everything else, and again, the freak injury to J.K. Dobbins sucks, and a lot of people are just going, oh, he's always hurt. None of these injuries have been the same. Again, it was a drop hip tackle. Like, it was an illegal tackle that where he got hurt. Like, it's not that he just was performing his normal duties. Yes, players get hurt, but I'd agree. Harvey by himself isn't going to be quite enough. And at times they need to just involve him even more. Like, there's times where you go stretches or series and Harvey's just nowhere to be found. And he's really dynamic. Like, you have to find ways to get the ball in his hands once a series, twice a series at least. Especially if you're moving the ball down the field, but it's going to be tough. This is where Sean Payton's frustrating.
Yes. So, Binkin saying that Diggs has done better than I expected this year. I don't know that I'm really surprised, to be honest.
The only reason I'm surprised is it kind of morphed into a different than I think what I was expecting. And he still did well with it. Like, he he's taken a step back from being like this out of this world all pro receiver, and he did a lot of mentoring, right? Like he did a lot of coaching up with some of these young receivers and stepped up when he needed to, but he did kind of whatever the team asked him to do. When he was with Buffalo and Minnesota, that wasn't necessarily the case. Like Diggs kind of did what he wanted to. He humbled himself and bought into the system, and he was doing some things, mentoring and everything else as older players start to do. But it definitely showed well for him while you had Kyle Williams and Keyshawn Butte and kind of this whole cast of characters in New England develop and come around him to create this pass catching unit.
Right. Yeah.
Which helped make Drake May look so good, right? Because May didn't have to single target anybody.
Right. Makes it easier when you're playing quarterback and you can just hit the guy that's open on that play.
Yeah.
So, Joe saying Pickens to New England, they have the cap space.
Yeah, but Mike Vrabel ain't putting up with that bullshit.
That's
like,
a good point too.
Yes, they have the cap space. Yes, he would fit as a clear one, and being able to do that for Drake May. I don't know if Mike Vrabel's putting up with what George Pickens has to offer. Like he's too much like Belichick in that regard.
That could be very interesting there for sure. Jordan saying, "Sup, good old boys." Not much, how we doing it, Jordan, on the Tuesday. But I do believe that that's going to take us down here to the end of the chat, and I think that's going to take us down here to the end of tonight as well. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Enjoy some wild card DFS for this upcoming week. No more Friday shows, right? We stopped that last week. But as always, hit us up on the socials at Good Old Boys FF. We're always happy to cut it up with you guys when you want to shoot a question our way or just kind of a random topic. We're always good for an opinion, if nothing else. So thank you all for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see y'all next week.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's going to do it for us tonight, right? We'll be back next Tuesday to talk about the wild card results, as well as looking ahead to the divisional round. Talk a little bit more about some of the coaching changes and coaching carousel and how that spins as we start kind of gearing up here towards the keep going through the playoffs and all that. But do appreciate everybody tuning in, chiming in. Always love cutting it up and getting to chat in the comments with y'all. But that's going to do it for us tonight. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.